advisors who can build a diversified portfolio that does not include the fossil fuel industry. And yeah, I think that if you give those instructions to your financial advisor, they can do that. That's part of their job. They should know how to do that. You can always take in suggestions from the list that's on the handout. Oh, and so at this point, let me point out too that during the presentation I referred to a document that you're supposed to grab on the way out the door called What You Can Do. So if you go to the Sierra Club website, just Google for Yavapai Sierra, and you'll go to the Yavapai group of the Sierra Club website. There will be a section there that is full of articles to read and a place where you can download that sheet. I think that sheet has, I worked hard on it today. I just did an update on it today. And so download that sheet and start working your way through it. My email address is on the back. If you have any questions for me later, shoot them to me via email. So grab your reference list. So then Rebecca Haynes asked if switching to evaporative cooling in houses helps. I've noticed it's not used much here. So to answer that, I use evaporative cooling in my house in Chino, and the reason is it's a lot less expensive than air conditioning. So it works really well when it's in your normal dry atmosphere. Maybe in August when it's kind of hot and thunderstorms are happening, it doesn't work so well. So there's a few days of the year when it doesn't work. If the humidity is too high, then the water in the cooler doesn't evaporate and it doesn't cool. One problem with evaporative cooling is water use. So many evaporative coolers actually use a flushing system that just pours a lot of water out into the drain. When you're evaporating water, then the minerals content increases and it coats the evaporation pads. So a lot of coolers actually flush out the water in the reservoir, and it's just wasted. So those kinds of evap coolers can actually use a lot of water. Now, maybe you could divert that water out of the cooler to put on a garden or a tree or a plant or something, and then not use as much water from your well or from the city for that purpose. So you should just be careful about that. Let's see. Wonderful presentation. Thank you. What would be the next best step for Prescott? CAP, how can we make it happen? I don't know what CAP means. It could stand for Central Arizona Project.
Climate Action Plan.
Climate Action Plan. Thanks, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
I've got my head in the world of water policy acronyms, and that means something else there. The next best step for Prescott. A community climate action plan would be the way to do it. You know, when we ask them for an action plan, we're asking them to make a plan. We're not asking them for a specific solution. That plan should be developed by a group of citizens. It should be a work group with heavy input from citizens. And if we do that, then that ensures that the plan reflects community values. How we can make that happen? Help out the Yavapai Climate Change Coalition. We're working on doing that right now. If you're interested in that, if you just email me, I'll put you in contact with the right people. So that we tried that in 2017, and we got a lot of attention on it, a lot of press. We got it discussed in the city council, but when the motion came up to sign on to the U.S. Conference of Mayors Climate Change Agreement, we got a motion to do that, and there was no second, and the whole thing died. It never even went to a council vote. So we lost 6-1. The one for it was Jean Wilcox, and so now she's not even on the council. So we have a lot of work to do with the Prescott City Council. So Selena Bliss wrote a long question here, and I'll read it. Selena's an old family friend, and she's actually, I want to point out, she's running for the state legislature as a Republican, and that would be great. I wish you well, Selena. Here's our question. At the state legislative level, what can be done as bipartisan approaches to address climate change and reduce greenhouse gas emissions? I appreciate your considerations when pondering policies, practical, fair, timely, and effective. I agree renewables and energy efficiency is a win-win when it comes to economic gains. Could economic opportunity be the motivator for Arizona to engage in policies that benefit us all? Yes, and the economics are there. You know, the economics for renewable energy are very favorable. Photovoltaic and wind energy are less expensive than coal. So there is a tremendous economic opportunity there for APS, for the state. What needs to be done at the legislative level is that the legislature needs to listen to science, that this problem is real, that it's severe, that it needs immediate action, and they need, if they have the will to act, then we can do it. They just need this is a question of political will, and this ought not to be a partisan issue. It is important to both parties and all people. You mentioned, and Selena also writes, you mentioned requiring green building codes. What about incentivizing these codes for individuals and businesses? Well, incentives, there's a backing up step. There's a couple of ways that government can change a citizen's behaviors and actions. One way is educational. In the world of water conservation, educational measures tend to be temporary and expensive and don't last long and don't do much. They only do about 5%. But if you give people an economic incentive for replacing a high flow toilet, a water wasting toilet, then they're much more interested in doing that. Incentive programs like that are broadly acceptable to political conservatives and progressives both. The third way that government can enforce social change is by making regulations. And here's where there's a political philosophical difference between conservatives and progressives. So you can make laws to require certain things from happening. So I almost forgot the question there. Okay, so so to incentivize these codes for individuals and businesses, you can pay them to upgrade. So in Arizona had a state tax credit for rainwater harvesting systems at one point. They had a state tax credit for photovoltaic systems, home scale photovoltaic systems. So some of that has been done. There's always a question about financing those credits. And in the state right now, even the Democratic Party is kind of reluctant to do additional tax credits because of their concerns with the status of education. So there's a lot of political trade-offs here between philosophies and budget priorities, and this gets complicated. But there's basically three ways. There's regulations, there's economic incentives, and there's educational means. So where do you start? And then finally, Selena is giving me a threefer here. Climate action plan, where do we start? We start with the city council. We start with Prescott, and then we expand to the other governmental agencies in Yavapai County. Okay, here's one from Bill Chisholm. can you email me your PowerPoint slideshow? Oh, it's huge. It's just far too big to email. I could put the PDFs up. Maybe we can get Carrie Hull to put it up on their website. You could download it from there, but it won't email.
Yeah, we can get it up on the website, and also on our website you can view and share the video with your friends and families, and it's open source on the NASCA website on the events page at the bottom. It's YouTube videos.
Great, thanks, Carrie. So back to Bill Chisholm. He says EV, electric vehicles. Note, he drives a Sonata hybrid. Some say the impact to Mother Earth due to harvesting the materials built in the vehicle, dealing with the waste product at end of life is worse than the fossil fueled alternative. What are your thoughts? That has been a concern in the past. And I saw a YouTube video where this engineer went through all the arguments and the calculations on this, and the answer is no, it's not. That just within a year or two, the electric vehicle option is all good. So I wouldn't worry about that at this point. I don't have that reference handy. Maybe I can dig that up and give it to Carrie at NASCA. Bill also asked to comment on the view that rhetoric argues that 100% reduction of CO2 targets turns off middle of the road folks is unrealistic. Would not setting 50% reduction target against current usage be a more realistic strategy? Well, I would say that the CO2 reduction targets are based on the science saying what's needed to keep global temperature change in a relatively manageable level. It's not a political judgment that's subject to compromise. As far as it being unrealistic, I think there's plenty of evidence that we can do this. I think that case needs to be made, a lot more education on this. I'm reminded of here, I guess, what Bernie Sanders was saying when people accused his Medicare for All plan as being unrealistic and impossible to do. And he said, well, everything's impossible until you do it. So we have to make these changes. We have to move to a renewable energy economy quickly, or suffer broad consequences throughout all of our lives for all people on the planet. So I don't think we have a choice about negotiating exactly what the reduction target should be. And then Bill also said, anything that references the Paris Climate Accord seems to alienate 30% of the electorate. Historically, this type of approach results in the electorate getting activated and switching those who force the change. Well, if we make a movement, we need 10%, and we can do it, and we need to hang on to that 10% and double it so it's a majority. It's hard for me to comment on that without getting excessively political. We need a much steadier and more consistent government policy on this. Having recent president come in and reverse everything that was done, and then having somebody else come in and reverse what he reversed is not helpful. We do need a steadier hand. And so I agree with your concern, but the goal is to achieve a renewable energy economy that with social justice, and I think that's a valid goal. Julie Pendozla asked if she can get a copy of the slides. Yes, we'll work on that with Carrie. Ramon Gomez wants to get the handout for the talk. Okay, Google for Yavapai Sierra, and you'll get the top listing will be to the Yavapai group of the Sierra Club's website, and you'll see it on the page. And okay, then Anonymous asked What's our greatest hope that might come out of our present crisis with the coronavirus? Wow, good question. I've been thinking about that. I just wrote a piece for Five Senses magazine, which will be on the web soon, that addresses the relationship between climate change and COVID-19 virus. And so people say, well, it's going to help climate change because we're staying home, we're not traveling, the economic system is shut down. That's a big problem, you know, and it affects many, many people, especially low-income people. So it's actually good for climate change. But then when you think about it, you know, this virus thing is going to pass. It might take a year. I don't know. Hopefully as quickly as possible, we'll get it under control. But the virus is short term. Climate change is a long-term problem. We're talking about making major structural changes in our economy in the next decade. And so the coronavirus effect on climate change is small change. And in the article, I made the point, and in some detail, that both climate change and the virus are created by us. Both are threats that arise from the same sources, and that's basically our economic system. So I won't go into more than that tonight, but you can go and look at Census Magazine and see that article online. Oh, and I also posted that article on the Yavapai Sierra webpage, so you can get it and download it there. Rebecca Hayes wants a clarification on this evaporative cooling thing. My question is more about whether they're better for the environment than AC. I understand the point about water usage. Yeah, they use less energy. They use less electrical energy. So that's why I put one in to start with. So in that sense, they're better for the environment if you don't waste the water. Ramon Gomez wants a repeat on the information to get the talk handout. So just Google in your web browser, Google for Yavapai Sierra, and that will take you to the Yavapai group of the Sierra Club website. And the main thing on the page is climate change information. And you'll see the first link there is what you can do, and you can download it from there. Faye says, I mentioned a really good book to the audience. I just want to suggest there's a free downloadable update on their website at drawdown.org. So that refers to this book, Drawdown, that presents an authoritative analysis of 100 separate ways that society can reduce global greenhouse gas levels. So the Green New Deal would stabilize it. The next step is to draw it back down to 350 or below, and restore the natural balance of the earth. That's possible. We can deal with all these problems. This is possible if we have the political will. So drawdown.org is a great resource. I think that Drawdown book has tremendously valuable insights that show what kind of changes are necessary in the world's cultural and economic systems so that we can continue to live on this earth. So then Julie Pendozla says, cheap oil also seems to promote SUVs and trucks. How to address this? And that is a really interesting point. You know, right now, oil is negative price. Oil producers are paying people to take it. It's minus $30 a barrel. The problem is they're making oil and the demand is low, and now they don't have any place to store it. And so they're paying people to take oil off their hands. So this is nuts. Now, so demand is down, and so that meant that the price goes down. And it is a paradox that lower prices tend to increase consumption. And the name of this is Jevons paradox, Jevons, Jevons paradox. And you can Google for that or look that up on Wikipedia. It's really interesting. How to address this? We need to leave oil in the ground. Then lesser supply will increase the cost and encourage people to buy SUVs, to not buy SUVs and trucks, but instead to buy electric vehicles, which I strongly recommend. I mean, it's just a good deal. So we could also have incentives for electric vehicles purchases. And so now the federal government does give an incentive for an EV purchase until the manufacturer delivers some number, like a couple 100,000 units, and then the subsidy goes away. So I think Tesla has just hit that point. So how to address it? Oil shouldn't be cheap. There shouldn't be so much production. And we need to incentivize efficient vehicles in other ways. So that's all the questions I have here. I'd like, I'll keep going if you want. Thank you for listening. Carrie, do you have anything?
I just wanted to say that I dropped in the chat box the website to the Sierra Club Arizona Yavapai link that you wanted.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you could reference, that's where Gary wants you to get the handouts. Also, you can email me and I can figure it out with Gary afterwards. But
right. So Carrie reminded me also to recognize Felicia French, who's running for state senate in LD6. I think that's Verde Valley, or is it Flagstaff? Verde Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's attended this conference. Thank you for attending, Felicia. If anytime you have questions, shoot me an email, give me a call on water or climate change, any of that kind of stuff.
It's exciting when candidates are on these forums because it means they're trying to learn and,
Yes.
It's good.
Very much appreciate their attendance. There's no more questions appearing. So Carrie.
Yes.
I guess we're done. Thank you everyone for attending and watching this. When I look at that presentation now, I think, boy, I could have done a bunch of those things better. I could have explained kilowatts and kilowatt hours better, and I could have explained tipping points better, but I do the best I can. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Thanks everybody for coming. Okay, have a good night. Happy Earth Day tomorrow.
50th anniversary of Earth Day.